Hello, everyone. Trudy here with Heal Wellness and Therapy. And today I want to teach you my top 3 tips for dealing with iliotibial band issues. Now, we all know when someone has an issue with their IT band, typically they are complaining of 2 types of symptoms, either pain in the outside of their knee that's nagging them, particularly with repeated activity with their leg, like cycling, walking, and running. The other issue that a lot of individuals will have is due to tightness in the muscles that attach to the iliotibial band, they will complain of outer or buttock type of symptoms relative to their hips. Now, when we look at traditional methodology in the physical therapy and fitness world for dealing with a problem with the IT band, here is where everybody goes to roll out that iliotibial band by getting rid of restrictions that are in the 2 muscles underneath it, the vastus lateralis, a quadricep muscle, as well as the hamstring muscle that sits behind it. But I want to tell you that more times than not, that iliotibial band does not need to be compressed by a foam roller, but instead it needs space. So stay tuned and I'm going to show you how to provide space to your iliotibial band. Tip number 1 for the iliotibial band. Your band, thick connective tissue on the outside of your leg, it needs space. So I want to teach you how to do a traditional cupping type of technique, or in the physical therapy world, what we call myofascial decompression. Now, there's 3 major types of cups. There's silicone cups, there's plastic cups, there's glass cups. Regardless of which cup you're going to use, just a reminder that there are precautions with doing any sort of cupping, particularly if you take blood thinners, you have fragile skin, or if you've got some sort of blood disorder. So be careful and talk to your doctor before you do something like this. When we use a cup to create space, you want to use the cup where you know the band is getting restricted. The most common areas that the iliotibial band get restricted are right at the crease of the hip, where the tensor fascia lata, the hip flexor, loses space, as well as anywhere down the band where it might be actually receiving extra compression. Think a bike short or a really tight compressive piece of clothing or something like that. So what you want to do with your cup is place it on your skin, either over the hip flexor, tensor fascia lata, or down the band, and then push in with the cup or pump the cup, whichever type you're using, until you feel like you've got a nice, good hold and the tissue is creating space. Now, here's the thing. In traditional Eastern medicine of cupping, you would just leave it on there for a time period and do nothing. But in physical therapy, we know through research that if you create movement of the tissues underneath, you're going to get even a better outcome. So I like to do a movement called tick-tock with the leg, or leg swing with the leg, particularly if you're over the hip flexor, for 60 seconds or so to really create lengthening to the muscle while you're creating space to that iliotibial band and all of the myofascial tissue. Once you've done 60 seconds or so, you just take the cup off, unsuction it, and you can just move further down the leg, further down the iliotibial band until you get another good suction. You know you're on the band, and then create space again by causing movement with the muscles. Now, as you go further down, the biggest contact with the iliotibial band is actually the rectus femoris and the vastus lateralis, the outer quadricep muscles. So oftentimes just working on bending your knee and straightening your knee and pulling the muscle off of the band works wonderfully. Tip number 2 for the iliotibial band, creating length in the tensor fascia lata. Now, anyone who has ever told you that you can stretch your iliotibial band is crazy. It is thick connective tissue that does not elongate well. But the 2 muscles that attach to the iliotibial band, the tensor fascia lata, which is tip number 2, and stay tuned, the gluteus maximus, which is tip number 3, oftentimes have tension and tightness in them. And by providing elongation to these muscles, you can create amazing relief through the outside of the hip, the buttock, and most importantly, the outside of the knee. So let's stretch our tensor fasciae lata. So have yourself in a standing position, a chair if you need it for balance. And if you're going to use a chair for balance, have it to the opposite side of the leg that you're stretching. So in this example, I will be stretching my right leg. Then take the right leg and cross it all the way behind. That movement of our hip is called adduction. It puts length on the front of the muscles that attach to your hip. Take your pelvis and rotate your pelvis perfectly in line with the toes pointing forward. Then take a deep inhale in, and as you exhale, tuck the tailbone under. That creates length to the hip flexors. Finally, take a deep inhale in. As you exhale, shear the pelvis outward. Aha! You will find that stretch in the muscle. Now, a lot of people like to add a little bit of an arm stretch to this, but that shear of the pelvis is really the most important component. If you wanted to add a stretch of the latissimus, which comes down and attaches to the back of the pelvis, feel free to do so. Take your arm out to the side, lift the palm up, take an inhale, and as you exhale, side bend towards the chair or away from the hip that you're stretching. Regardless of how you're doing it, hold yourself here. 5 to 7 nice slow breaths, 20 to 30 seconds to create beautiful length through that tensor fasciae lata. Tip number 3 for taking care of that iliotibial band is lengthening through the gluteus maximus muscle. Now, please understand there are circumstances where maybe those gluteus maximus muscles are weak and might need strengthening, but relative to the iliotibial band on the outside of the thigh coming down to the knee, when the knee is the culprit of your pain and symptoms, usually it's tension and tightness in that muscle that needs to get lengthened out. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to do the stretch. One for those of you that are cyclists that keep those knees bent all the time. And also for those of you that are walkers, hikers, and runners, that it's more important to stretch the gluteus maximus with the knee straight. So have yourself a nice, comfortable seated position. The stretching hip, bend the knee up and take that ankle and cross it all the way over the opposite leg. Then sit up nice and tall onto your sit bones. Bring the knee up into the chest and take the opposite arm and hug it all the way around that knee. The arm on the same side, have it behind you, stack your spine nice and tall, take a deep inhale in, and as you exhale, pull that knee up and into your chest here. You'll feel a nice good lengthening of those gluteus maximus fibers as they attach to the iliotibial band with the knee bent. Holding this stretch for 5 to 7 deep breaths or 20 to 30 seconds. And finally, the way to stretch that gluteus maximus for those of you that are walkers, runners, and hikers, we want to stretch it with the knee straight. So you're going to need some sort of tool or device to be able to wrap around the underside of the arch of your foot. I like a stretch out strap, but a belt, a yoga strap, anything that you could make a loop with will work perfectly fine. Bring yourself down onto your back. The leg of interest, have your knee to your chest. The opposite leg is down straight onto the mat to anchor your pelvis in a neutral position. Loop around the arch of your foot. As you inhale, push your leg all the way away. And as you exhale, slowly start to pull the leg up just until you feel a hamstring stretch. Then holding onto the strap, take the hand on the same side of the hip of interest and make sure to secure the pelvis down onto the yoga mat. Engaging into the quadricep, keeping the knee nice and straight here. Take a nice deep inhale in, and then as you exhale, bring that leg across the body. Now the outer part of that iliotibial band where it's connecting to that gluteus maximus, you're getting some nice good lengthening there with the knee straight. Once again, just like we did in the sitting position of the elongation, holding it here for 5 to 7 nice slow breaths, 20 to 30 seconds. And before you know it, your gluteus maximus length is improved, your knee pain is happy, and your iliotibial band is more efficient. So thank you for joining me today. Now, if you like our video, give us a thumbs up as well. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you will get notifications of all of our future videos. Have a great day.